Okay, Fluke Networks and the data center is what we're about to talk about a new departure, or is this just the launch, a continuation of your expertise in the area? Just yeah, give us a flavor of Fluke and the data center.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say, Phil, that Fluke Networks is pretty much synonymous with data centers. So we've been in the networking space within data centers for probably over 2 decades. What we're seeing evolve is actually Fluke's broader presence. So not just in our networking equipment, but as we think about our broader tool set, so our troubleshooting tools, we're definitely doubling down there. But in network specifically, what we're trying to do is very much make life easier for the technician. So one of the things that we're seeing is that the data center landscape is evolving and changing very rapidly. And a big part of that is to do with scale and capacity. As we all know, mainly driven by the rapid expansion of hyperscale and of colo. So one of the things that we're doing with data center kits is essentially taking some of our existing tools, but then complementing them with new that are specific for those data center technicians and trying to make it as easy as possible to make sure they have the right tools in their backpacks so that when they're on site, whether that's on commissioning, whether that's inspecting fibers, or whether that's troubleshooting, that they know they've got the right tool to do the job that they're going to be faced with when they land on site. And that's principally to make sure we get ultimately uptime. That's everything we're focused on right now is supporting data center operators with maximizing uptime.
Okay, and in terms of the development of the Versiv Data Center Kits, I mean, given a fair amount of background there, but was it specifically because of the way the data center is evolving? Did someone have an idea, great idea to put some of this together as you've explained? Anything you can share as to I suppose, the exact inspiration behind it?
Yeah, the origin story, I guess. Well, I think the origin story for data center kits is actually very similar to most of Fluke's origin stories. It's a combination of what we call voice of customer. So we live in our Gemba, which is our customers' workplaces. So we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, particularly with data center operators, data center technicians, trying to understand what's changing in their worlds and how can Fluke help. So that's a big part of it. And the other thing is we pride ourselves on having some of the best experts. We have the teams that are in there helping set standards, helping understand and work with data center operators and data center engineers in terms of what the next evolution is going to be. So when we combine the power of our customers' problems and our customer opportunities with the innovative spirit that we have in our teams, that's what fuels a lot of these new ideas. And that's really where data center kits came from. It was that combination of customers saying, hey, we love your products, we buy some of these today, but there's maybe stuff that we could do differently or could do better, or there's products that we today have to go out and source from multiple places, and we would just love it if there was just like a Fluke backpack that I could just literally pick up that I knew had every tool I'm going to need in it to solve whatever networking problem, whether it's on fiber, whether it's on copper. You look at things like the new very small form factors, so VSFF connections. How do we know that whatever we're going to face, we're going to have the right tool to do the job? And that was really the inspiration for the data center kits.
Right, and yeah, and as you've explained there as well, they've been developed primarily to help folks identify both copper and fiber network connectivity issues. So, and maybe combining with what you said earlier, this is situation. I won't say they didn't exist previously, but the AI, hyperscale, cloud explosion, higher density data centers, everything is becoming more critical and margin for errors, I guess, are reducing. So just describe, I suppose, the landscape which your tool is, the kits are addressing, if you like, how that's changing.
Yeah, I think that's if I think about across Fluke in all of the customer workflows that we serve, probably data center is the one that's changing at the fastest rate. And really, there's lots of reasons for this, obviously, but you see this showing up in infrastructure, but where you see this the most is in people. Ultimately, what Fluke does is we put hand tools into the hands of people. And a couple of things that we see. The expectation on those people is higher than ever. The workload is higher than ever. The need for productivity. When you're in a hyperscale data center at the final commissioning stage, you can imagine you're one of the many data center technicians on site, and the pressure to make sure that you can deliver the commissioning in time to get this data center online, and the in some cases millions, in some cases billions of dollars that are stood behind that phase. You don't want to be the one that's fumbling around trying to make sure they've got the connection right. Likewise, you don't want to be the one who tested that trunk fiber cable, thought you got it right, and then closed went, and you find out when you go and try and start that there's a problem. So really what our tools are trying to do is make sure that we can focus on enabling productivity so that we can make sure that from a scale perspective, technicians, operators are able to really achieve the phenomenal speeds and scales that we're seeing the market require. The other thing is around usability. A big part of what we have done is think about usability. So historically, and particularly in maybe enterprise or smaller data centers, the technicians are very familiar. They've maybe worked in this space for a long time. But with the growth of hyper and large colo data centers, it's inevitable that we're having to bring new people into the environment, into the trade that maybe have less experience than others. And what we're trying to do is find ways that we can, what we call poka-yoke or error-proof the process, so that we make it as simple as possible for even less skilled technicians to make sure they're able to achieve the same results and deliver the same outcomes that even the most seasoned network engineers are able to achieve. So for Fluke, that's our two big motivating factors: productivity and making sure we can support all of the workforce in doing the job as best as possible.
Okay, and in terms of the way the kit is designed to function, I suppose, in terms of maintaining troubleshooting network connectivity problems, I mean, you've described there the sort of commissioning side, but it's equally relevant for the ongoing operations and maintenance of the data center. So just tell us, I guess, how a kit would be used in practice across the data center.
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil. And I think the first thing is we've really thought very carefully about the different kits. So we now offer a range of different kits that suit really our individual customers' needs, and they vary the life cycle. But when we think about the life cycle, we really think of it in kind of three ways. So there's the commissioning stage. This is the initial maybe setup, configuration, validation, and there our focus is often around things like fiber inspection. So it's a well-established fact that fiber end face defects in the fiber end face or even dirt, etc., in that fiber end face is the single biggest reason for loss on these main networks. So by making sure we make it easier to inspect, clean, and validate those end faces has a massive impact overall in terms of uptime and reliability. And then once you've got that in place, you can accelerate the initial commission testing. So when we're talking about things like optical loss testing or OTDRs, all of those are now into a single kit. And then the next stage is obviously the operational lifecycle moves and changes, especially given the dynamic pace at which data centers are evolving and customers' needs within those data centers are evolving. We see lots of moves and changes. So we want to make sure we're doing things like, how do we manage cable management? How are we thinking in terms of making sure we've got good record keeping of those locations, the certificates, what happened end to end? And that's where really our Linkware Live software really comes into its own. That software ecosystem that's used everywhere and understood from everywhere, from cable manufacturers right the way through to design engineers, architects, operators. It really spans all of those different workflows and gives that kind of single source of truth and that record keeping. So that software workflow is critical in that operational stage. And then finally, you have troubleshooting. It happens, we all know this, something goes wrong, or there's an issue. And in data centers, particularly in hyper, I would say, the uptime is so critical that the time to fix becomes the absolute paramount concern. And that's where making sure you've got a tool in our data center kits that's going to allow an operator to get in, quickly identify, quickly diagnose, and give a very high probability that you're going to get that fixed first time is critical. And often that can be one or even a combination of tools that they need to achieve that. So knowing sure that they've got all of that together means they've got a high certainty they're going to get that job done right first time and ultimately ensure uptime. So that's the three stages that we look at. And the data center bundles are really designed to make sure we can provide the optimum solutions to our customers at each and every stage.
Okay, and what would be in a typical, if there is such a thing as a typical bundle, what would be actually included? What are the tools that would be in the kit? Or as you say, it sounds like each individual, application might be slightly varied, but what are the sort of tools that you include in the kit?
Yes, there's a couple of different things, and there is lots of variation between all the different kits. But what I would say is they sit really around three areas. So I would say the heart of our kits is our Versiv platform. So for your audience that are familiar with Versiv, and for those that aren't, Versiv is what we name our kind of mainframe units that are the heart of the ecosystem. That's the main tester that's used to do all of the testing, and that can be support for copper testing, fiber testing, and it creates an environment where we can also do a large number of different connection types. So everything from MMC to MPO connectors all can be done in the single product. Then we kind of wrap around that a number of different sort of accessories and other options. So one of those, for example, is the fiber inspector. So our fiber inspector is what we use for doing end-face inspection of different fiber cables. And the nice thing with the kits is, as you can imagine, there's obviously lots of different fiber end-face types and fiber connector types. So we have a number of different inspection options that customers can now configure and choose within those kits that aligns with the different fiber connectors that are used within the environments in which they're operating. And then the other final thing here is, we all know that if you're in this space, the plethora of accessories that you need to accommodate all the different launch cables and all the different connector types and interfaces. So what the kits do is take all of the guesswork out of knowing which accessories you need. And actually, we've done that for you. So we have gone through and kind of profiled some of the biggest like troubleshooting items that are used by our customers for different applications. And what we've done is basically group all of those together so you can super easily go through, identify the kit that's going to be best fit for your applications. And then, hey presto, you've got it. You've got one solution that's going to give you everything you need.
Okay, I'm just wondering, I mean, there's a lot of talk in the data center space about automation, and obviously, they're obviously hosting AI, but they're also using AI. But what you do, it sounds as if it's pretty much quite a manual job. So how automated and intelligent can you become over time, or will we never be able to substitute somebody, physically having to go into the data center because, just because of the nature of the job, or is it possible that you can over time add more automation and intelligence, so less? Because I'm not sure, I think human interaction is the single biggest cause of failure, isn't it? A data center, somebody goes and does something and inadvertently causes a problem. But no, just what is possible, I suppose, in terms of removing humans, or will they always be required to do the sort of things that you're helping them do?
No, I think definitely automation is actually one of the foremost things in our mind. So, and this shows up in a number of different ways. If I think about Fluke more generally, we have a number of partnerships with different robotics providers, where we're actually applying Fluke tools as payloads onto the back of, for example, Boston Dynamics Spot Robot. So we already have on the electrical side and on the acoustic side for acoustic measurement, we have payloads that go on the back of robots to do preventative and scheduled maintenance inspections. So absolutely, I think Fluke is probably one of the leaders in its space here in terms of understanding how the need for automation is expanding. And as you mentioned there, Phil, humans are the single biggest risk to data centers. I was in a couple of data centers the last couple of weeks, and you hear this story time again, whether it's security, but it's also mistakes. It's human error. We're all fallible as humans. And we mentioned about inspection a minute ago. So inspection is probably a great example of that. That little bit of grease, or you've undone a connector just to check it. Yeah, I think I'm good. And then you put it back in, and what you don't realize is you've got some debris or something on the end face there. As you've done that, you haven't cleaned it, you've reconnected it. And next thing you know, you've just increased the loss on that particular cable completely inadvertently. And if you haven't done the certification at the end or validated that, you're not going to know until eventually that gets aggregated across all of these micro human errors that get made, and then you see the overall impact. I think the other thing you mentioned there was automation. So absolutely, speed is critical. Productivity is critical, as I said earlier. So most of where this is showing up right now is it's not going to be possible, at least in the next couple of years, for a robot to do the workload of a human when it comes to a lot of these network connections. But what we can do is make it as easy as possible for that human and as quick as possible to do their job. So we really focused on this innovation in a couple of areas. So the first thing is speed. Every single tester that we bring to market now, our engineers spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours trying to get that extra second off the test time because we know if you maybe have 20 engineers testing network cables in a new hyperscale data center, you could have 20, 30, 50 engineers carrying out literally hundreds of tests a day. That 1 second really adds up. And that's what we hear from our customers. That all of our big customers are looking for these marginal gains that they can get from across their operations. And I think the other thing is in our software. So our software is very much around enabling productivity. It's around enabling collaboration and communication. And the easier we can do that and the more that we can automate, so sending test results into the clouds, automatically compiling them, automatically giving certificates that can be stored and shared, all of this today is work that people have to do. And more often than not is work people do on site. If you can automate that work, if you can take it away from people, and ultimately if you can have those people spend less time on the job site, all of that increases efficiency and reduces risk to the data centers. And that's what our customers are asking for right now.
So no, thanks for that. And maybe just before we finish, I know that I think I'm right in saying that in conjunction with the kit launch, you're also introducing some accessories. You mentioned, I think earlier, the very small form factor connectors. So just tell us a little bit about what you're doing when it comes to those, these accessories.
Yeah, so I think really the accessories are there kind of as a way of making life easy. So we know that the landscape is evolving around the connector infrastructure at a frankly astonishing rate. If you imagine that kind of acceleration curve that we've seen, you're really at the kind of inflection point now when we're heading up in terms of the plethora of different connector types. So really what we're doing with our accessories is trying to make sure that you're never going to be caught short. You're never going to end up in a situation where you're sent to a job and as an engineer, you don't have that right connector accessories. But we also know that there's still a lot of maybe confusion or there's not clarity in the market right now around what's the optimum connector. So what we've tried to do is make sure that certainly for the kind of front of line technician, that they're not having to make that choice, that they can be going to a site, rest assured that they've got the right connector for that job or the right accessory for that job in their kit. And actually what we're doing is we're working with cable manufacturers, we're working with data center operators, we're working with leading installers and technicians to make sure that we understand how the market is evolving and where the market need is, and then that we can configure our kits to make sure we've got the right mix of accessories for whatever the application is that our technicians are going to find when they land on site.
Okay, maybe just in finishing, obviously we're talking about sort of recent activity, so maybe it's a bit unfair of me to ask, what else you're doing, because it sounds like you're quite busy anyway. But are there other things, whether they're challenges, which might also be opportunities for yourselves, whether it's in the data center industry or obviously the IT sector? So, the data center industry exists to serve the IT industry ultimately, I guess. So just anything else you can share as to what's keeping Fluke busy or what else you might be looking at, into the future.
Yeah, definitely. So I think so I've been with Fluke now for well over a decade, and I would argue that from an innovation perspective, this is probably our busiest time. I have rarely in that over a decade of experience seen the rate of innovation, but it's exciting for me to say that I think data centers are going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the innovation of Fluke. So as I mentioned right at the top of the discussion here, Phil, so Networks is known in our data center space. We're a big brand and we've got a lot of experience, but data centers overall is a much bigger opportunity for Fluke. So we're bringing in the next couple of months here additional capabilities for fiber testing. So you'll see really in only a few more weeks from now, news coming out from us in terms of our next generation fiber tester on the network side. But we've recently deployed a bunch of new tools to help with solar. And actually, solar is such a big kind of paradigm shift for the data center world in terms of microgrids and how we think about sustainable energy, that what we're finding now is some of our biggest solar applications are actually tied to data center. So we're already starting more innovation around how do we think about leveraging the work we're doing in data centers in our network business with the work we're doing with solar in our electrical business. And the third area I would say is power. If you think about the things that are the biggest pain points for data centers, power, cooling, people. And I think of those, most people will know the Fluke brand for power. We are the electrical test and measurement brand after all. Yeah. So we're doing a lot of innovation right now around things like power quality. as we think about the different power sources, so microgrids, and we think about hyperscale infrastructure and how that changes harmonics within data centers. We're having to think really kind of new and again about how we think about providing power quality analysis. So we're actually working with some of the kind of leading hyperscale brands right now to do some innovation projects around power quality as well. So this is really Fluke's unique ability. We stretch and we pan a very large portfolio. We call it our tool belt, and this stretches everything from fiber inspection through to power quality analysis and problem solving, right the way through to providing leading and the most innovative test instruments in solar, which is going to power the next generation of data centers. So really, it's a kind of completely holistic approach that we can bring. And I think that's what really excites me when I look through some of our innovation pipeline.
Oh, that's brilliant. As you say, it's very exciting times. And again, as you say, I've worked in the IT space for quite a time, and it does seem the pace of innovation seems incredible at the moment. So
Yeah,
good luck in keeping up. But it sounds like you're ahead of the curve, at least at the moment. But it's been brilliant to chat. And thanks so much, Mike, for sharing so much great information about Fluke and thoughts on the data center as well. So yeah, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. Look forward to connecting again soon.